everyone. I'm Courtney O'Neill Allen with GovExec TV and your host of today's 5 questions. Here with me in studio is Brian Chamberlain, who leads business development for SolarWinds Federal. Welcome, Brian.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So excited to get into this conversation with you. But before we begin, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and where you come from? I heard some interesting things offline about you.
Yeah, sure. So I came in the Marine Corps in 1998, and then later got my commission as a communications officer. Served various roles, from operating at the forward tactical edge, and then later as a CTO, CISO, and a CIO. Also spent quite a number of years with the Navy doing ships modernization and also serving as a coalition communications officer.
That's an interesting journey, pivoting from the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain.
Yeah.
Very unique. Well, as we dive in, could you just set the scene for us of how Zero Trust architecture, or ZTA, and its origins began and what led to implementation across the federal government?
Yeah, so I think to begin with, let's take a step back from Zero Trust architecture and just look at Zero Trust as a concept, right?
Okay.
This isn't a new concept. This began with Stephen Marsh wrote a dissertation in 1994, right, where he talks about Zero Trust, and then later on, through that, that influenced, I think, a lot of folks in IT to say, we really got to challenge the idea of this sort of castle moat idea of the network infrastructure, right? That's not exactly the best security approach. So let me give you an example of this. The traditional network architecture, when the development of the internet came out, was this idea that you had, say, a firewall or a door. Once you were inside, now at this point, you were trusted, right? So if I wanted to go, reach out to an application or whatever, I'm already in the wall, and so it's implied that there's trust because I'm there, right? So by 2000, this sort of changed a little bit. And then, fast forwarding into 2020, 2021, so we've got the SolarWinds breach that took place in 2020. The vulnerability was Sunburst, and that really caught the attention of the federal government. And not long after that, we had the federal pipeline. There was a ransomware attack on the federal pipeline in 2021. And then, during that period, there was, a real uptick of, cyber vulnerabilities, cyber attacks, really both nation-state actors and non-nation-state actors. So I think what that did is really kick the federal government into high gear.
Yeah.
Really became an arms race. So, just like all the advances in technology with artificial intelligence, machine learning, broadly speaking, the bad guys are also using this, right? And so, and that was really recognized, I think, all the way at the executive level. So, so it really created this federal response cascade, right? That started with an executive order 14028 14028 in May of 2021 under the Biden administration. And then with that executive order, the Office of Management and Budget put out Memorandum 22-09. And the purpose of this memorandum was now to operationalize that executive order. So that's sort of the evolution of things. In addition to that, what we have is, predating this executive order, you've got the National Institute for Standards and Technology, and they had already published, the special publication 800-207, and that gave more technical, like implementation details on how we're going to support this zero trust framework, kind of at large. So, And then out of that, we have CISA that puts out its zero trust architecture.
Right.
And the first one that they put out was in 2021, and then they revised that in 2023. So I think, it sounds like a lot of documents,
Yeah.
publications, right? So I think a good way to look at this is you have, you've got the recipe, if you will, right? And the
Yeah.
recipe is OMB 22 Tax 09, right?
Okay.
That's the thing that operationalized,
Kicked it into motion.
really kicked it into motion.
Okay.
And then what we have is we've got the cookbook, right? That's NIST, right? And other special publications. The specific list of ingredients would be in NIST 800 to 207, right?
Okay.
Folks, practitioners will leverage that in order to create this zero trust architecture within their specific IT environment.
I love the analogies and super impressed that you remember all of those policies by name and number. I'm like, how do you pronounce this? That's an interesting backdrop and kind of speaks to why people describe it as a journey as opposed to just this concept. It's been a road to lead us to now. So thanks for taking us through that. Can you provide also a general overview of what zero trust actually is?
I think the fundamental concept of zero trust is that it assumes that there is no implicit trust, right?
Right.
We want to, we assume that the enemy is already behind the gates. And so the core security model then becomes never trust, always verify, right?
Right.
So every user, device, and service is continuously validated. So what I mean by that is whether you have a device that is reaching out to another device on the network or a user that's reaching out to an application on the network, before that connection is established, something, in that network has to validate you are who you say you are,
Right.
And establish the session period that you're going to be on there as a way of really defending against some kind of nefarious activity, right? So this is a system of systems approach.
Okay.
Zero trust is not a thing.
Okay.
You can't go out and buy a widget that provides zero trust.
Right.
In fact, because it is a system of systems approach, it's based off of the risk that is identified within that specific IT infrastructure.
Okay.
I think that that's an important concept to understand because every single IT environment assesses their risk differently. And so if we could, if it was all equal, we would create a cookie cutter framework.
Right.
Put widgets against that in order to provide those security measures, right, across the different pillars of the zero trust architecture. And then we would roll it out to the customer, and make somebody quite wealthy. But instead what we have is, a lot of providers that are providing niche solutions to different components of this zero trust architecture, if that makes sense.
No, it does. And in different environments is largely too what you're speaking to. Every environment is different for every organization. As we look into the build process at SolarWinds, can you talk a little bit more or share some insights on how SolarWinds adoption of Secure by Design and how ZTA is implemented in developing and rolling out that software?
Yeah, so at SolarWinds, the core philosophy is secure by design.
Okay.
A component of secure by design is zero trust, right? Zero trust, if you think about it, it is a component of this larger secure by design concept. What's not talked about very often is zero trust in the respect of when you build software, where's the zero trust as you develop that software before you now introduce it into the production environment?
Okay.
because of the vulnerability, the Sunburst vulnerability and the breach that took place at SolarWinds, um, there were a lot of lessons learned that came out of that.
Right. I'm sure.
And, so we reimagined how we were going to develop our software. And the approach that we took was, the engineers have total control over the build itself.
Okay.
But in terms of compiling that software and validating the security of that software, they have absolutely no control. We assume that through that build process, that a supply chain hack has already taken place, right?
Okay.
So what we do is each one of these build environments is ephemeral, if you will, vice this sort of long-standing build environment that sticks around for a long time, and right, we refine it. What that does is it creates really gaps.
Okay.
So we've got this temporary build environment. We build it up. We take it one step further, and we do this over and over again. So we have duplicity of these build environments.
Okay.
Each one of the teams is working in silos, not knowing what the other team is doing. The software is then compiled and built. It's also penetrated, tested against a red team through the entire production process.
Okay.
And then what we end up with is essentially a parity check, right? Where we look at all of the different builds that took place. Do they all match one another?
Okay.
And if the answer is no, then we crush the entire build environment and start all over.
Start all over. Okay. Wow.
So, and then we pick, at random, seems random to me. Maybe there's a method that I'm unaware of.
An algorithm of some sort.
So, right, that selects which one they're going to go with, right? And this is one of those measures that we take that applies both the zero trust concepts, zero trust architecture concepts, along with secure by design before we even move it into the customer's architecture. So
that's great. I'm sure the federal government customers or partners are happy to hear that you're thinking about it this deeply.
Yeah, well, and it's great that I'm here to talk to you today about this, because I don't think that that's widely known or understood.
Yeah. As we close here, can you give us a little bit more of an overview of how SolarWinds core software platforms reinforces the pillars of zero trust within the customer's network environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing that I want to point out is that when you look at CISA's zero trust architecture, it's got five total pillars, right? That really are meant to span the entire network architecture from front to back. And then you have the DoD's zero trust architecture, if you will, and it has 7 pillars.
Okay.
You kind of scratch your head. You go, well, what's the difference?
Yeah.
It's really, I would say, a retelling of the same story.
Okay.
Just for a different audience, right?
Nice.
The Department of Defense has kind of taken the exact same concepts, really to speak to its audience in a way that meets their specific needs, right? So I think that's the first thing that we've got to look at. Now, when you look at both of those architectures and the pillars, each one of the modules that exist within the SolarWinds platform aligns in some way with each one of those pillars, whether it's the 5 from CISA or whether it's the 7 that you have with the Department of Defense.
Awesome.
Right. And so not only do they support one of those pillars, but some of those modules will support multiple pillars at the same time. Now, given that, we've got to look at it. There are 3, really 3 concepts. First you have that core infrastructure, right? What SolarWinds does is it secures that network infrastructure, providing this, validating device health and looking at compliance, right?
Okay.
So the core infrastructure of your IT network is fundamental to zero trust, and the reason why I say that is because within a zero trust architecture, you have three critical components. You've got this policy engine, right?
Hmm.
And the policy engine is like the thing that validates your identity, right? Then you have a policy administrator, right? It's the widget, the software that is going to broker a communication link between you and the application or
Hmm.
a device and another device,
Hmm.
and it works with the policy engine. Then the third component that you have is you've got a policy enforcement point,
Okay.
right? So when me as a user, I go to this policy enforcement point, which is like a firewall.
Okay.
It then gets handed off eventually to that policy engine to say, are you who you say you are,
Hmm.
right? So that's really that core infrastructure. And so one of the things that SolarWinds does is it provides visibility and health, and we optimize that core infrastructure that enables that zero trust framework. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Okay. The second concept is, monitoring and control, right?
Okay.
Um, End-to-end visibility. So when we look at, like, say, the OSI model, I think a lot of people understand the 7 layers of OSI, from the physical layer all the way to application.
Okay.
What SolarWinds is, think about it like an ecosystem, right? That has the ability to see the entire IT infrastructure and not only monitor the device, but also correlate that information across different layers of that infrastructure in order to provide more insights about what the threat might be or how we need to optimize that infrastructure. And then not only that, but it's operating on an on-prem environment and integrates in more complex hybrid environments as well.
Okay.
So what I mean by hybrid environment is, if you've got infrastructure as a service, your application is being hosted on somebody else's
Yeah.
infrastructure, or software as a solution, right? You have a software solution provider.
Hmm.
There's that integration as well. So then it comes back to a single pane of glass where you're now able to really have visualization of that entire infrastructure. Why is that important? Because there are components throughout that entire IT environment that are responsible for supporting zero trust in its concepts. So, and then we look at the third aspect,
Okay.
which is defense and compliance, right?
Hmm.
It reinforces that identity and access control, and improves the application resilience, right, through optimization and so forth.
Hmm.
And then also, a big one is, compliance. Right?
Yeah.
As an example, we've got these STIGs in the DoD, right? The DoD pushes out these different STIGs and says, these are some of the vulnerabilities. We want you to patch this or do this,
Yeah.
these particular systems and so forth. So we have the ability to not only give the customer the ability to build the script that goes out and applies those STIGs,
Mhm.
but also gives you the audit capability to ensure that we're in STIG compliance within that entire IT infrastructure.
Wow. Well, Brian, thank you so much. This was really informative and insightful, and no one has ever really broken down ZTA or zero trust with me quite like you did. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
For sure. And don't forget to subscribe with us on YouTube for more great conversations like this at GovExec Plus. This is 5 Questions. I'm Courtney O'Neill Allen, and we'll see you next time.